of like a question that hits on multiple different things. So first of all, think back to question 7 here. Remember how I said that whenever you have multiple answers that are very similar in a multiple choice question, that one of them is probably the answer, and that this is especially true for answer choices that are mutually exclusive, or in other words, what I mean by mutually exclusive is when a question can have only one correct answer, so it would be impossible for both choices to be right, if they are contradictory or, in other words, mutually exclusive. So since they both deal with home, right? So since C and D both deal with home as part of the theme, then remember we said that logically C or D, one of them is probably going to be the right answer. And note that this trick isn't always going to work 100% of the time, but it's usually a good bet, especially if you're not sure what you have to do and you have to make a guess on the GED, because on the GED you're always going to want to guess. You never want to leave something blank here. So we can use this trick to just narrow our focus down to A and D, okay? And so we see here that A and D are the same sentence, but there's two differences, right? And so we don't know for sure that it's either A and D, but it's a safe bet, all right, that one of them is going to be correct and one of them is going to be incorrect, all right? So let's break this down here, all right? And we're going to go over why each answer choice is wrong, all right? So A is incorrect, and as we know, D is the correct answer. So the key here is to understand punctuation rules, all right? And so note that in your writing, you always want to start off each new sentence by capitalizing the first word in that sentence. So I've underlined and bolded and highlighted the word his in letter A because it's his with a lowercase h, and that's incorrect. And again, the correct version is D. I just got a new period, capital H, his name is Tommy. So the letter in the first word of a new sentence is always supposed to be capitalized. Okay, that's a punctuation tip. Now let's keep rolling here. What about B? Why is B wrong? Well, you need to understand that B is wrong because it ends in a question mark here. All right, and that's one of the reasons, but that's the one I want to focus on first here. So since we're on the topic of punctuation, all right, let's briefly review the 3 big types of punctuation. So a period ends a sentence, and an exclamation. Okay, so these are all 3 ways to end a sentence here, but the differences are that a period is used for a statement, all right, and a question is used for a question, all right. Now an exclamation mark, which is also sometimes called an exclamation point, is for showing excitement or showing a strong feeling here. So in the sentence, her discipline paid off. All right, that's not a question, all right? We could say, did her discipline pay off? Or in the long run, did her discipline pay off? Something like that, but her discipline paid off. Okay, that is supposed to be a period at the end, so that is why B is incorrect in 18. Now, as a general rule of thumb in your writing, when you're writing, I recommend sticking mostly to periods just to be safe because, you know, if you put an exclamation mark or a question mark somewhere where it's incorrect, you might lose a point for that. So I would stick mostly to periods. There's not much of a reason to use exclamation marks or question marks. Now, if you're confident that you're using them correctly and you want to throw a couple in, sure, why not? But I generally recommend avoiding it. There's usually no need to do it. Okay, so what about C? What's wrong with C? So C is wrong because the word by is not the correct form. So again, this is another example of words that sound the same but are spelled differently, and therefore these words have different meanings. So we've got buy spelled B-U-Y, which would be to make a purchase, like I went to the store because I had to buy something. All right, now the word buy, B-Y-E, can mean 2 things. It could be a shortened form of the word goodbye, like he said bye. Or it could be like, think of a sports team. They had a bye week, all right? A bye week would mean that the team advances to the next week without playing. Or if you have a bye in a tournament, then you skip that first round of that tournament, you go right away to the next round. Now, bye spelled B-Y would has a couple different meanings, but the ones that are most important are meaning close to, which we see here. Okay, they went fishing close to the river. That's what we mean by in the sentence here. Also, by could mean by means of. Like, for example, he passed the GED test by studying every night of the week for a couple weeks in a row. All right, and it also could mean for a deadline, like he had to take the GED test by January 1st. All right, so those are just some examples here. Now, I've also highlighted the semicolon. So you might notice these semicolon things that what they look like is just a period on top of a comma. And the best way to think about them is that they are stronger than a comma but weaker than a period. All right, that's just kind of a way. I don't know if it's the grammatically correct way to say it or not, but that's a good way to think about it. All right, and semicolons can be used to separate parts of a sentence. All right, and the most common use of a semicolon is to join 2 independent clauses without using a conjunction like a word such as and or but. So conjunctions are words like and or but, and they they're going to follow a comma typically, all right? Although sometimes people don't write a comma after the conjunctions, but in most cases you would technically want to do that to be grammatically correct. Now, what about the word clause? What do I mean by independent clause? Well, an independent clause is just a way of saying a complete sentence or a sentence, right? A dependent clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb, but it's not a complete thought, unlike an independent clause, all right? And so again, just like with exclamation marks and question marks, it's generally best to avoid using semicolons, all right? So these are generally, there's no use to use them in your writing for the essay. Now in real life, of course, there's plenty of purposes for using them, and you're going to see them in your reading. So I wanted to make sure that I addressed what that was, but just know that in your own writing, for the purposes of the essay, I just recommend not using them, okay? Just end the sentence with a period and just start a new sentence, capitalize the first letter of that first word, and just go on with a new sentence, just because it's kind of like, you know, if you're not 100% sure that you're using a semicolon in the right place, just don't even take that chance, all right? Now, of course, if you feel comfortable with them, go ahead, but that's a choice you have to make. So let's move on here to number 19 now. All right, so in number 19, choose the word that best completes the sentence below. So Kent and Sadie bought a new couch for blank house. Choose the correct form of there, A, B, or C. Pause the video and go ahead and give that a whirl right now. Okay, so let's go over this. So basically what you need to know is, first of all, B is the right answer, T-H-E-I-R is right, and there is another common word that there's 3 different ways to write it, and they sound essentially the same, but they're spelled different, all right?